Hey guys, it's Nailbiter, and this is a replay I had with the 113 on Erlenberg. I've posted a lot of Erlenberg replays before, and that's not entirely coincidental. I think this is one of the maps that I'm more comfortable on, particularly when I'm playing a meta or a fast heavy like the 113. And that's mainly because I think the meta on this map is a lot more straightforward than a lot of other maps, and so it's usually easier for me to predict what's going to happen, and I'm usually able to get myself into good positions to do damage and help my team win, perhaps more so than on other maps. With Erlenberg, typically the south spawn has a pretty significant advantage on the 9 line, while the north spawn has an advantage on the 2 line. So when I'm playing a fast tank, I almost always go to the flank that has the better chance of winning based on which side I spawn in on. So in this game in particular, I spawn on the south side. I'm playing the 113, which is, while it is a heavy tank, I think it plays more like a medium tank. It's not a traditional heavy that has strong armor. The 113's armor is really pretty unreliable, and what usually happens if you go 2 line from the south spawn is at some point the enemy will push into you, and you'll usually be outnumbered in that kind of situation. And in that case, you really want to have armor that you can rely on to help you hold out as long as possible, or at least make it difficult for the enemy to push you. So we're not even 2 minutes into this game, and we've already won the 9 line. The enemy only sent a couple of tanks there, and it was pretty clear because we actually had good scouting that there was really nothing there. So I just pushed kind of straight through, and we won the flank pretty quickly, which isn't all that unusual really. It's generally easier for the south spawn to win the 9 line than it is for the north spawn to win the 2 line. The 2 line's a little harder to push, and in this case we won the 9 line so quickly that the enemy hasn't even had time to push the 2 lines, so we haven't lost any tanks on that flank yet. Now what often happens when you crush the 9 line is you typically get people on your team who will just keep pushing forward, and they'll try to push into the cap in the north. And while it's very easy to win the 9 line from the south spawn, it's also very difficult to actually push the northern cap. I've said this before, but I think that the cap on the north spawn on Erlenberg is probably one of the easiest caps to defend in this game, and part of that is due to the meta, because you usually don't get that many tanks who actually go east, so there are a lot of tanks who hang back and stay to defend the base, and there's no cover on the base, and the hills on the 2/3 line provide a good amount of cover for defenders. And in this kind of situation where the enemy only sent 2 tanks to the 9 line, it's kind of obvious that there have to be a lot of tanks staying back in base, and especially here, the enemy hasn't even really pushed the 2 line, so all their tanks are going to be in kind of a 4 to 6 grid square area, just able to defend the base. It's not necessarily bad to keep pushing and clear out any tanks that the enemy has that are east of the river, but once you get to that point, actually pushing across the river and putting pressure on the enemy cap is very dangerous to do, especially when there are this many tanks left alive. There's so much open area, and there's no cover near the cap that it's very easy to get punished by any tanks that the enemy might have still in base. Now, because the enemy hasn't really pushed at all on the 2 line, and we still have tanks that are in that southwest area, I'm going to push across through the middle instead of going all the way to the south or having to even worry about defending the base potentially. Normally when you get into this kind of situation where you have a lot of tanks that are trying to push through the A line in the north, and you have a few tanks still in the southwest, the middle is pretty open. And so as you saw, I was able to weave my way through the buildings and get to this spot really easily. And this spot, in my opinion, is probably the best way of dealing with an enemy team that camps in their base like this, because now that I've safely closed the distance between me and the enemy tanks here, I can much more easily dictate the type of engagements I take by using this ridge as cover and just peeking whenever I'm reloaded or whenever I want to take a shot. The other thing I can do from this position is spot for my teammates so that hopefully they can get shots off, and at worst I can distract the enemy tanks here and make it easier for my teammates to move up. Since I've also managed to conserve my hit points at this point, there's also less risk that I'm going to get YOLO'd by any tanks on the other side of this ridge, or at least there's a better chance that I could survive getting YOLO'd. So initially I just wanted to contain the enemy tanks here and wait for my teammates to move up, but since I'm losing so many of my teammates, I decided that I need to start doing damage, because while this spot can be really strong, I'm also pretty committed in this position, and there isn't an easy way for me to fall back, so I can't afford to lose a lot of my support. So since I'm full HP, I don't care too much about the AT-15 shooting me. As long as none of the other tier 10 TDs are looking at me, I decide I'm just going to peek a few times and even if I lose a little bit of HP, I want to put more pressure on the enemy tanks that are still here. Right after I put that shot into the grill, I noticed that the JPZ has pushed over the ridge, so he's now completely isolated from the rest of his team, and once our RD spotches him, I know I can kill him in one shot, so I want to take advantage of that opportunity. However, right as I kill him, I spot this Foch who is quite obviously YOLOing straight toward me. I tried to wiggle a little bit, but unfortunately got tracked there. I'm able to kind of juke him a little bit and track him as well, forcing him to use his repair kit, and I kind of rush him and put pressure on him and make him take a bad shot. So I bounced the second shot and I was able to get around him and finish him off. Unfortunately, I had to expose my side a little bit to the tanks in B3, so I took an extra shot there. So now I have to be much more careful about losing HP, and this spot I'm in right now is a bad spot to be in because there are a couple angles that I have to worry about, and I can't really control if the enemy peeks me, so I want to just get out of that area and get back to the initial spot that I was in. I noticed that their 140 was pushing our Patton, but since the 140 was a one-shot, I figured the Patton would be able to kill him. And so the first thing I wanted to try to do was re-peek this same position that I was peeking from earlier and try to spot the grill, because the grill is the only tank that the enemy has left that I can't afford to take a hit from. The AT-15 for some reason decides to try to get a shot on me, so I'm able to get a kill shot on him, but the 140 somehow manages to kill our Patton, and so now I want to try to find a way of getting a kill shot on him and preventing him from getting back into a defensive position. I decide to shift back and try to change my angle, and I'm hoping that I can catch him out in a place where he doesn't have support from the grill. So I'm going to slowly peek this ridge and make sure that if I do get spotted, I can back up before I actually expose too much of my tank. So I spot the 140 there. I rushed the shot a little bit because I'm not totally sure where the grill is. But luckily for me, the 140 isn't able to get into any kind of cover, and so I'm still able to peek again and get a kill shot on him without any return fire. Since I still don't know where the grill is, I'm going to go back to the same spot I've been using this entire time to peek again and just try to narrow down where the grill might be, or maybe even spot him for artillery. But before I'm able to get to the ridge and peek, I get proxied by the 1390. And I obviously don't want to risk the chance that the grill could be looking at this position or have a line of sight on me. So I'm just going to wait here. And at this point, for some reason this doesn't show up in the replay, but the RD on my team said in chat that he was attacking the 1390. So I decided to wait for the RD to shoot and give him a chance to kill the 1390 before I did anything. So right now I'm just trying to keep this 1390 lit and wait until the RD is reloaded and has a shot on him, because otherwise there's really no easy way for me to deal with the 1390. Now this is probably one of the few instances where you actually get RD serving its purpose in this game. So often RD punishes people who play aggressively, but this is one of those few situations where RD actually does what it's supposed to do. So I kill him, nice job in chat, and now I just want to wait for my teammates because the E5 and the Scorpion are moving up. I'm not going to risk it, even though chances are, even if the grill were to kill me, we would probably still win, but there's no point in me throwing away this advantage. So I'm just going to wait for my teammates to go in first and wait until the grill gets spotted. So the grill gets spotted away from me, and now I can just push in. So this game is pretty much finished. It's just a matter of killing these one-shot T-34s while the E5 deals with the grill. But that's essentially how you have to deal with an enemy team that's camping their base, and especially when there are so many tanks camping, is you have to find ways of safely putting pressure on the enemy and isolating tanks. And I think that that spot in E3 that I played for most of this game is one of the better positions you can use to break a base camp on this map. So anyway, that's the end of this replay, and here are the post-game stats. I ended up getting an ace tanker this game and about 1300 base experience, so a pretty good game on the 113, about 6,500 damage, so nothing crazy in that regard, but I was pretty happy with how I played this game. I thought I played well and dealt with the base camp about as best as I could. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.